Today, my girlfriend Amanda is putting me on the hot seat. She is gonna interview me just like a hiring manager for a tech sales role.
And today you'll learn how to kick off the interview like a pro, how to answer the toughest questions, how to avoid the biggest mistakes that cost candidates offers, and how to close strong to secure the next step.
Really good job. And because you're watching today's video, you get 20% off using the 20 off discount code for the sales interview system. It's everything I would use throughout an interview process to land a six-figure tech sales role, whether you're an SDR or account executive. Scripts, templates, a CRM, questions prep, everything you need all in one place. If that sounds at all interesting, link in the description. Okay, the interview started. Me and Amanda, we exchanged a bit of small talk. Now, what would I do? What should you guys start to do to kick off that conversation the right way, to take control and take the lead? Say something like this. Amanda, glad we were able to find time to connect today to see if there might be a mutual fit here to work together. Would it be helpful to get the conversation going if I kind of walked you through what I've been up to the last 3 to 4 years in my sales career, why I applied to this specific role at your company? And it might be a bit of overkill for today's conversation, but I did create a specific sales plan for the role. If you think it will be relevant, happy to hop in and walk you through what that looks like.
Sounds great.
Awesome. And just a tidbit, guys, any role I really want, I create a detailed sales plan. I send that sales plan a day or two prior to the conversation. It sets the stage, and no one else does that. So currently, Amanda, I am an account executive at IBM. I've been here the last 3.5, nearly 4 years. It's the best job I've ever had. It's kind of weird. I live in Philadelphia. That's where our office is. But my territory is out in California. So I head up any and all accounts in the state of California. I have a $6 million quota. That quota consists of all revenue. So any renewals, expansion opportunities, most importantly, net new logos. So a typical day for me, Amanda, looks like this: 2 to 3 sales calls a day. A mix between discovery calls, demos, pilots, proof of concepts for our larger customers. There's quite a bit of account reviews as well to uncover if there's any challenges a customer might have, where features they don't have access to can help solve those challenges to expand the account. And then there's also some technical support calls sprinkled in there as well. My sales performance the last 3 years has looked like this. In 2022, I finished at 113%. That was my first year in the seat. In 2023, I finished at 121%. And in 2024, we're gonna see how things shake out. It's either gonna be between 118 or 125%. Hopefully it's 125%, obviously. And this is the best job I've ever had. I wanna pause there. Where would you like to go deeper with questions? So I wanna kick it back to Amanda. You wanna keep your answer concise. Like if I were to speak any longer than that, I think I would lose you.
Yeah.
Do you think that was like a good length?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Without getting into too much detail on certain things. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's good.
So you want to keep it concise. Don't talk forever. You want to make sure it's relevant. And then you want to be enthusiastic in your delivery. And then most importantly, you want to be impactful. So sprinkle in a couple, whether it was a big win or where you were at a quota. Obviously, we're going to get into quota later in this video and talk you through what that looks like. And then it's key. You don't want this to be an interrogation. You want it to be a conversation. So you want to ask a question after you answer their question. My question was where you want to go deeper with questions. You could ask, to what degree is this resonating for this specific role? How does this compare to what you're looking for in the role? How does my day-to-day compare to the day-to-day of this role? Again, conversation, not an interrogation. And the second question, outside of tell me what your experience looks like or walk me through your resume, that you're always going to get, and you need a very detailed, specific answer, is why do you want to work for this specific company? Most people screw this up all the time, and I have a 2-step formula that I follow to answer this question. Number 1, you want to share what your criteria looks like for your ideal employer in your next role. And number 2, you want to share how that employer, how the interviewer fits that criteria. Awesome, great question, Amanda. Let me just take a step back and walk you through the criteria that's driving my decision, and then I could share how you and your team and your company fits in with that criteria. So you might not like this part of the answer, but I don't really care what product I sell. It could be MarTech, DevOps, data and AI. I don't really care as long as that product is a must-have product, not a nice-to-have product. One of the top, if not the top product in its product category, a sales leader who's a sales coach first, a sales manager second, and a company where, Amanda, at least 40% of the current account executives at the company have been there at least 2 years, and at least 40% of the account executives who left the company to go somewhere else stayed at least 2 years. Doing some research on you guys, speaking specifically to the tenure, I know that 48% of your current account executives have been at seat at least 2 years, and 70% of the account executives who left the company, left your company, were there at least 2 years. So that tells me that you guys are a sales-focused company. Your tenure is much, much stronger than most. I was on G2. I think you folks have it's like 10,000 total reviews. I read probably 100, 150 of those reviews. You folks are selling a must-have, not a nice-to-have product. It's the top product in its product category compared to a couple of your competitors. You know, you have Dell, HP, NetApp. That looks great. I was able to scan your 10K report, and a few things stuck out to me in terms of you folks being a sales-focused organization. We could talk about that further in a minute. And actually, I was able to have a couple conversations with folks who worked for you specifically, Amanda, that left, and they spoke very highly of you and did mention that you are a sales coach first and a sales manager second. So I'll be interested to see if that holds true throughout the conversation, and to see if there might be a fit here. How was
Very detailed.
Very detailed.
Very detailed. You did your research.
Very detailed, because most people will just say, oh, I know your company culture is great, or, I know you guys pay well. I think it looks great for you if you could, what is your specific criteria? For me, I share what that specific criteria is, and then share how that company fits that criteria, and then you want to make it known that, hey, I'm interested throughout the conversation to really verify if you fit my criteria or not. And that's going to put you in the frame that this is a two-way street, not a one-way street. I know you're interviewing me, but I'm interviewing you too. So you want to make sure with why do you want to work for this company, that your answer is super detailed, specific, and well-researched, because no one else is doing something like that.
Okay, why are you leaving your current company?
Yeah, unfortunately, my role and every role on my team, we were informed 2 weeks ago that our jobs were moving across the country to Austin, Texas. I'm not going to uproot my life for work, so I'm still at IBM for another 30 days, and then I'll be a free agent. Like I said, Amanda, this was the best job I've ever had, but I think this was a blessing in disguise. I think, I was very successful in the role, but I became a bit stagnant in the role, and I knew that I needed to get into a different role to grow as a salesperson, and that's why I'm excited to have this conversation with you today, because I think, based on all the research I've done and conversations I've had with other reps at your company, this might be a great place to grow and become a better salesperson.
Beautiful.
So you want to make sure that, number one, if you're leaving a company that you hate, and typically most folks are in this case, that you never talk trash on that company. That's never going to come across well. You don't want it to seem like, hey, Amanda, the reason why we're meeting today is I'm running away from this bad opportunity to get into any opportunity. You want it to be more so that I'm running towards a good opportunity than getting away from a bad opportunity. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So what did you do to prepare for this interview today?
Gosh, I did a whole lot. Would it be helpful, Amanda, if I actually showed you what I did versus tell you? I think that question has come up. I've had a couple interview conversations. That question has popped up, I think, in 2 to 3 of them. So I think it's much more powerful if you could actually walk someone through and show them all the research you did rather than tell. Because, any salesperson could just BS and just make something up on the spot, but I think it's much stronger if you have something put together, whether it's a one-pager, a PowerPoint, the sales interview system where I do all of my research and store all my research, and just walk them through, this was my process to do research on you guys, and I have 2 to 3 pages full of research and great questions. I think that's much more powerful than just telling somebody that, but that's my style. What do you think about that answer?
I think it sounds great. I mean, actions speak louder than words, so showing what you've done, I think, speaks volumes.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, next question.
Yeah.
What was your performance in your last sales role?
Okay, let's assume for this question that I did not hit quota, because that's a tougher question to answer than if I did, and I did consistently in my role. But if I didn't hit quota, this is how I would answer that question. So Amanda, my goal was X, I sold Y, That put me at 82% to my quota for the year. I sold X amount of deals, which I was able to hit the number of deals that I needed to overachieve my quota. However, my average deal size was not where it needed to be. Here's why that was the case. And then I'll provide some details in terms of maybe a mistake or two I made, whether it was discovery, whatever it was, as to why my average deal size wasn't where it needed to be, where I needed to hit quota. Then you want to provide some context. Now, in terms of where I was stacked ranked on the team, Amanda, there's 12 total account executives on my team. I finished third. In terms of the distribution, 60% of our team finished below 50%, 3 finished above 75%. Obviously, I was one of them. The top rep finished at 95%. There were a few challenges that hit our team this year as to why none of us were to hit quota. And you want to share what those challenges are. Now, you don't want them to be excuses. Like, take ownership, but you don't want it to come across like, oh, they gave me a quota that I had no chance of hitting, yada, yada, yada. Don't do that, but have 2 to 3 challenges that hit the team, and then maybe how you would address those challenges better going forward to become the top rep on the team. And then I would end it like this. Now, my goal obviously every year is to finish number 1. I finished 3. So the 82% was an okay performance. It's not where I need to be. Here are 3 things I'm going to ensure I make changes on in my next role to make sure when I do ramp up, I have a good shot to become the number 1 rep on the team. And share those in a bit of detail. You need to know your numbers because they're going to try to poke holes and ask a lot of follow-up questions around your numbers. Here is a golden tip. A golden tip.
Let's hear it.
So for my interviews, I created a couple diagrams that walk through my numbers, the math behind my numbers, my average deal sizes, all the deals I closed, and also screenshots of where I ranked on the team. They need to verify that if you're going to say, hey, I was third on the team or I was first on the team, it's much better if you could actually show pictures and images verifying that. But you need to know your numbers inside and out because they're going to poke holes.
Sounds great.
Was that a good answer?
I think so. Yeah. If you didn't hit quota, you held accountability, and then you also provided actions as to what you were going to do to hit quota next time.
Like, don't lie. Do not lie. If you missed quota, be blunt, own it, provide context, a few things you would change, and then context. Where are you stacked on the team? That's much more important than where you were at quota. Because if you're on a team where every single person hit quota, who cares? It doesn't really matter. What matters more is where were you against the rest of the team? Far more than where were you to quota. Hot take, sorry. For going on a rant.
All right, next question. How do you turn a no into a yes?
How do I turn a no into a yes? I think it's important to understand why it's a no in the first place. Because some no's should be no's. And what I mean by that is, maybe it's a no for a valid reason, where your product can't solve one of their biggest challenges and maybe a competitor could do a much better job. If that's the case, you should verbalize that to the customer, put a stake in the conversation, and make a recommendation for a different solution. So I think how you turn a no into a yes is it's pretty simple. Ask questions to understand why it's a no. If it's something you could handle to move the conversation forward, great. If not, no worries. Move on to a different customer.
Perfect, I like the honesty. Next question is, tell me about a mistake that you made that cost you a big deal.
Mistake that I made that cost me a big deal. Okay, this was a big one. So we were meeting with a plumbing company out in California. We did a pretty lengthy POC proof of concept. It was a very, very big deal. It was in closing in my pipeline for a very long time, and this was the end of 2023. And at the end of the POC, we secured a technical win. The folks we were meeting with on that team really liked the product. They said it was great. The VP of IT told me, hey, Matt, I will get this pushed through procurement by the end of the week. The end of the week came, crickets, nothing back. The next week, the VP of IT called me and said, hey, Matt, unfortunately, procurement came back and said we don't have budget set aside for this project. It's going to have to kick to the end or the beginning of 2024. Big mistake. The mistake I made here wasn't around asking if they had budget. The mistake I made is I didn't verify at the very start of the conversations that this was a main priority and a big enough problem to solve.
So one thing that I've noticed before I ask the next question is that when I ask questions, like interviewing you, you take a minute to pause, you you rephrase the question that you were asked. Are you doing that on purpose to make it seem, obviously you've done research, you're well rehearsed in all these questions, you know these questions are going to be coming up. Are you doing that to make it more natural and less rehearsed for the person on the other side of the screen?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's really rehearsed because that question might come up, it might be phrased differently. I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly. But there's a lot of times where I'll get a question and I will pause for a very long time because I don't really have an answer right off the top of my head. I have to do some thinking. Or I'll say, hey Amanda, can I have like 30 seconds to think about it? And they'll give you 30 seconds. And there's times where they ask me a question, like a tell me a time when question, a behavioral interview question, and I can't think of a specific story. And if I can't, I'll let them know and I'll be like, hey, I can't think of a specific situation that popped up like that. I'm sure it has. Can I just kind of walk you through how I would address a situation like that? They're not going to care. Like they're more interested in what your thought process is behind the question more so than a specific story. But some of these behavioral interview questions, some of them are tough.
It can be, yeah.
Like some of them are really tough. So just make sure when you're going into an interview, you have your stories down, and there's typically around successes, failures, challenges, mistakes, things like that.
Cool. All right.
And if you don't have an answer, don't try to make one up on the spot. It's going to be very difficult.
All right. Last question. Tell me about your biggest professional failure.
Oh my gosh, my biggest professional failure was my time at Comcast Business. So at Comcast Business, Amanda, I went a perfect 12 for 12. 12 out of 12 months, I missed my quota. Out of 60 reps in my Freedom region, I was the worst ranked rep in the entire company. Now, to give you some context, this was my first sales job. I had no idea what I was doing. I outworked everybody. I set more meetings, but when it came time to have the meeting, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to set an agenda, an upfront contract, do discovery, close, or book a next step if it was relevant for the customer. Therefore, like I said, I went a perfect 12 for 12, and the biggest lesson I learned in that job is you could work hard, you could have traits that make you maybe a natural salesperson. However, if you don't put the extra time in and take complete ownership of your skill development to become a better salesperson, you're gonna fall flat and not be all that successful. So that was the biggest lesson I learned, and now I would say, if you were to ask me, hey Matt, how are you different than other salespeople? I take complete ownership and I invest more time, energy, money into my development than I would say 99.99% of sales folks. So it was a big failure, but I definitely think it was needed in order to get me on the right track and be successful.
Beautiful answer.
There you go. But these are just some of the questions, guys. Like I said, have your stories down. Come to a conversation if you really want to get the job with a sales plan. And then obviously, what I think is more important than the questions you're asking me are the questions I'm asking you. So I'm gonna pull up or pop up a couple questions I'm asking in an upcoming interview on the screen. You'll notice, guys, how detailed and specific these questions are. You need to ask questions to uncover, again, if this is the right fit for you. Because they're interviewing me, you're interviewing me, if I'm the right fit, but I'm interviewing you because the number one factor in terms of if you will be successful in a sales job is if you're put in a situation where you can actually win. For every good sales role there's out there, there's probably 50 that are horrible. I've had a lot of them. Now this past one was very good. So make sure you're asking very detailed questions to make sure you're uncovering if this is an opportunity where you could actually be successful. And then, this is most important, if I were to close Amanda out, and actually this is how I closed Amanda on our first date. You gotta go for the close. This is a sales job. You're the salesperson. You are the product. You have to go for the close. If you don't, you're probably not gonna get the second round interview. Amanda, based on today's conversation, is there anything holding you back? Any objections, hesitations holding you back from moving me forward in the process?
That's not how you closed out our date.
Okay, but just say yes or no.
Yes. No, there's nothing holding me back.
Awesome, so it sounds like I'm moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, can you provide me a bit more detail with what the next steps look like, and more importantly, what can I do between now and that next step to best prepare? So there you have it, guys. This is the first of many, I think, mock tech sales interviews. I think Amanda will be tougher on me in the next one. If you are curious how to crush an SDR interview, it's gonna be right across Amanda's head here. Click on that video. I think it's gonna help you out. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you.